I don't do fancy bullet journal spreads anymore. I've tried some, not super fancy, but I've tried most things in the community over the years. What I do have is a spiral notebook that functions as a bullet journal and just with the parts that matter and that work for me. Hi, I'm Em. I deal with things productivity, planning, and systems, and I do a lot of overthinking so that you don't have to. I'm going to show you the 5 ways that my spiral notebook is a bullet journal, mostly true to the method, with a few little tweaks, and I'll also show you the things that I have replaced flat out or that I skip intentionally from the bullet journaling community. The main thing that I keep from the bullet journal method is rapid logging or daily logging. I am always keeping track of what I have done each day, and I think that is the main benefit for me of a bullet journal or a notebook that is as much about recording as it is about planning. Now, I don't use the specific bullet journal symbols. I do use my own symbols somewhat for tasks and for migrating. And I'm not super consistent with everything, but at any given time, I do what works for me. The other thing that I keep from the bullet journal method is a minimalist design. I use a spiral notebook, so one might argue even more minimal than a bound journal, but it's just because I like writing big, I like open space, and I like being able to paste in letter size. But the key for me is it's minimal, it's adaptable, it doesn't have to stay the same all the time, and I can just use what works for me in that particular day, week, or month. I do use various pens. I know that visually I see pages in my mind, and so having some pages be used with blue ink, some pages be black ink, some pages with a mixed. I do use colors for particular days in the Stabilo highlighters. I do use particular colors for my areas of life in other ways. So I do have some things that some would argue aren't minimalist, but they are what makes a generic thing like a spiral notebook work for me in a minimalist way without having to have anything much printed or planned out ahead of time. Another key feature of the bullet journal method is migration. Now, I definitely migrate tasks, but really that migration into a new notebook is part of a core tenet to my way of doing things because I specifically migrate at the end of a 2-month season. I don't like going willy-nilly changing whenever. I don't like a full 3 months. It's too long for me. I like the short attention span of a 2-month time. And so a lot of the things that bullet journal says to do monthly, I do on a 2-month basis, or a lot of things that systems say to do on a 3-month basis, I do it on a 2-month basis. It's just that nice middle ground for me between a week and a year. 2 months seems to be the sweet spot for me. I like having that fresh start. I like being able to reevaluate my system. It opens up a lot of opportunities to reflect, which is another big thing. Another key feature that's important to me is the index. And it might seem like a little thing if you have not used this method over an extended period of time, but as you do use it for an extended period of time, being able to look back at an index from a notebook from 2 or 3 or 4 notebooks ago, it's really helpful. And so because I use these things, the notebook is definitely key. And I've even found I need to plan more room for my notebook because, again, I like the white space. I like room for it to breathe, for me to find things. And I do color coding in my index when I have time because that even makes it easier to find things. The last real thing that I use from the bullet journal method is reflection. And you might know me for my weekly resets or my seasonal reset. That reset and reflect are very important to me. Writer Carol is very adamant about intentionality and reflection, and that is definitely part of my system. Again, another reason I like the 2-month seasons more often than a quarterly reflection. Okay, maybe as not often as monthly, but I found monthly, it's too close to weekly. So that 2 month for me, total sweet spot for the bigger reflections, but weekly, definitely a reflection and kind of resetting is what works for me in my system. And that cadence is my thing. What are the core things that I don't do? Now, I don't do much calendary stuff because I definitely am a digital Google Calendar person. So I don't use a true future log. I might have some pages here and there as relate to projects that have future things, but there's not an overall, here's my future life. That just isn't something that works for me in a spiral notebook or anything in print. Another thing that I don't use is the 1 through 31 linear calendar page. I need 7 column calendars. I need a Monday through Sunday, 7 columns. Is that the right way? To work for a calendar page. My brain works that way. I've tried tracking things on a, list of 1 through 31 or 1 through 28, whatever the month is. And even with the weekends called out with blocks like that, it doesn't work for me. I need to see the weekend on the, I think it's on your side, the weekend on the one side, and Monday through Friday. It just, I need it in that structure. I do use several monthly calendars printed out. Actually, I've been printing them out in my 2 month season. I'm actually gonna switch to monthly and just have to turn my book horizontal because I just write too big for the boxes I've been using. But monthly calendars for me are for tracking if they're in print. Monthly calendars for planning, that's Google Calendar. But the monthly list 1 through 31, love the idea, should work, saves space, so logical, doesn't work for my brain. And then the true, bullet journal fashion, opposite that 1 through 31 list is the task list for the month. Again, I don't do monthly, I do weekly, and then I do seasonally. So I just skip that monthly cadence. Another thing I don't do is I don't do much in the way of aesthetics. I've already mentioned I do use colors for very specific, logical, I'd like to say, things. I don't try to do anything aesthetically pleasing or color coding themes for months. I like themes for time periods, but not necessarily aesthetic themes. I don't track moods. I've tried it. I've tried doing mood trackers. It just, it's too much. It's not my thing. So yeah, I think my spiral notebook, it really is a bullet journal. I started with bullet journaling in 2017. I've been in and out of it like I have with most things. When I started my spiral notebook phase back in 2022, it was not in any way thinking of bullet journaling. It was, oh my gosh, I'm retiring and moving and I need a big place to keep track of things. That's what the spiral notebook was first my thing for. But in 2025, when I picked up another one of those spiral notebooks, I kind of looked at bullet journaling and then I thought I rejected it, but I realized I really have just internalized so many of those things that my blend of bullet journaling and GTD and full focus and some other goal setting things, it's just bringing all those elements together that work for me. And that's what the bullet journal is really about. It's not about a rigid thing. It's stripping things down to its essence and doing things that work for you. So, what works for you? You might want to check out my Choose 4 Things, where I go through the parts of a basic personal productivity system. And where does this bullet journal spiral notebook fit in? Well, it fits in a couple places, but check that out and you can see.